All right, everybody, football fanatics, NFL fans, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, anybody that's just watching this podcast just to listen to some things. Welcome to my Week 17 recap reaction video for the week. I hope everybody got to enjoy their New Year's. I hope everybody had a great time with friends and family. I know I enjoyed my time with my family and friends, and obviously it's always a lot of fun being able to do all that. So just thank you guys so much. Really means a lot to me, not only just to me, but to others in general too. Just to keep on with the continued, source of friend, some sorts of like, keeping in contact and patience and everything. I know normally I do these on Tuesday nights, and then I do my weekly picks on Wednesday nights. But I think with pretty good reasoning, I think everybody really understands why that I had to postpone, or at least I decided to postpone it because of just obvious reasons. I'll get into it a little bit more, but before we really get anywhere further, just please be sure to drop a like on this video, leave a comment down below, hit that subscribe button as well, guys. I'm telling you, I need more viewers, I need more subscribers, I need people to know about me. Guys, you've been listening to me all season long. Why stop now? Tell your friends, tell your family, tell anybody that's a football fanatic. Let them know that I am the guy that they want to listen to as far as football podcasts go. I'm telling you, I'm the guy to listen to. So go ahead, do all those things, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and so on and so forth, and all will be good. And the channel will grow to be bigger and better than it already is. So do all those things for me, please. Then all will be good. Thank you so much. Thank you for your continued support, guys. And just thank you for your patience, too. So before we really get into the dive of what happened this week, there's not going to be a whole lot to really talk about. So hopefully I'm not really on here for much more than an hour, but I'm going to try and go through everything as best as I possibly can and just kind of dive into what I'm going to be talking about for this week. As a lot of teams at this point in the season, aren't really playing for any kind of playoff implications. Some teams still need to try to win out or and hope for some teams to lose this week in order to, qualify for the playoffs here, and still very well possible. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen real quick. We're going to go ahead and we'll talk about the playoff picture here. So we got the Chiefs at number one. They're at the number one seed right now over on the AFC side. The Bills and the Bengals are at number 2 and number 3 respectively. We should find out more later on this week, maybe this weekend, hopefully, just to really identify as far as like what that's going to really determine here, as far as like this particular game of Buffalo and Cincinnati, and see what they're going to really do, how they're going to declare either a winner or a forfeit for this game. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. But right now they're at number 2 and number 3. The Chargers clinched up a playoff spot here. They're at number 5. They could easily drop if things if things don't go the way. If they don't beat the Broncos, they could drop to a lower seed. I don't think they're not going to drop anywhere lower than 6. So they've got themselves locked up in the playoffs. So regardless of what happens, they'll either play Jacksonville in the wild card, or they'll end up playing Cincinnati or Buffalo, depending on how that game pans out there, if they're going to do anything with that game in the near future. So that's where the Chargers are at right now. The Ravens they also clinched the playoff spot. They could move up to number 5 and play Jacksonville, or they could potentially drop and either play Cincinnati or Buffalo in that respect. So that's what we're looking at right now. And the hunt, technically, I think at this point, I think Jacksonville is going to win this division. The Titans are starting Josh Dobbs this week because they're playing Jacksonville. So Jacksonville should win this game. I think the Titans did everything they possibly could, but I think it's too little, too late at this point in the season. I think they've had a lot of injuries happen to them, and you don't have Ryan Tannehill. Potentially, you don't have Derrick Henry. Possibly, I don't know, but it's going to be rough. So I think Jacksonville is going to end up. I think they're going to end up finding a way to win this division. Then the number 7 spot. This is the one where everybody's got to really focus on the most. Technically, the Titans still could get in to the 7th spot here if they, depending on whether or not they beat Jacksonville, but they would also, but it's the probability of that is very, very low because they would have to depend on the Dolphins to lose to the Jets. They would have to either depend on that, they would have to depend on the Steelers losing to the Browns or the Patriots losing to the Bills. Right now, the Patriots at number 7 because they beat Miami last week. So they're at number 7 right now. And if Buffalo plays this coming weekend, uh, we'll see if that really how that pans out in terms of like what's happening with this game where the player's going to be ready to go for that Sunday game. So a lot of things are still up in the air with Buffalo and Cincinnati and everything. So we're going to see what happens really there with those two particular teams. But right now, that's what the AFC picture is looking like right now. Call it a hunch, but I think there's a good possible chance that I think it's going to be a competition. I think it's going to be a competition between whether or not the Patriots can either win or lose to the Bills, and I think it's going to come down to either the Patriots, the Dolphins probably could, or the Steelers. So it's going to really come down to potential games and who's going to be playing what and what have you. So the AFC side still has some things done, undetermined things for obvious reasons. So that's what it's looking like at the moment. Then you look up over in the NFC side, the Eagles are the number 1 seed right now. That very well could change this week if Jalen Hurts does not play, and could change the factor of everything. The 49ers are at number 2. The Vikings are at number 3. The Bucks are at number 4. The Cowboys are at number 5. The Giants are at number 6. So the Giants clinched their playoff picture there. They clinched the playoffs, as did the Dallas Cowboys. So they're both going in. And then the hunt left is the Seahawks are at number 7 right now because of their win over the Jets. And the Lions won this week. They beat they absolutely obliterated the Bears, and the Packers obliterated the Vikings. So Sunday Night Football is going to be Detroit and Green Bay at Green Bay. So that's going to determine whether or not if one of these two teams make it in. Very well possible that one of those two teams could make it into, or the Seahawks could make it into. They're all trying to hold on for dear life and trying to do what they can in that aspect. So that's what we're looking like for the NFC. We'll see who that one really can go down to. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I mean, obviously, the Lions are going to have to hope that the Rams beat the Seahawks in order for them to get in, for them to get in and to beat the Packers too, because the Seahawks have that head-to-head victory over the Lions. So that's going to be very crucial there too if the Rams can find a way to beat the Seahawks, which is very well possible that could happen. Very well possible that could happen because the Rams have, as of late, they haven't been good that great all year, but at the same time, too, I also feel like the Rams have been coming on as of late, so that's some things to be said about that. All right, so obviously, I'm sure everybody follows the news. I'm sure everybody kind of knows what's going on as far as like this particular game goes. But right now, it's we're looking at a potential delayed game here, or we're potentially looking at something that obviously things could really change within time. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing this, so I might have to stop sharing real quick because I think you guys are not seeing it. And I should reshare it like that again. All right, so that makes sense. All right, good. So, yeah, so a lot of things going on right now. We all know what happened. I'm not going to get into detail of as far as what happened. It's been all over Facebook. It's been all over the media and everything. But guys, obviously, we all love to watch and play the game of football. It's a American pastime. Everybody enjoys it. But we have to really come down to what I said the other night in my post. It's not just about a game of football. Obviously, we love to watch football. We all enjoy the game of football. That's why it's an American pastime. We all enjoy it. We love playing it. It's America's favorite game. However, in the game of football too, there are risks that you have to take. And what you saw on Monday Night Football left everybody speechless. It definitely left a lot of people in just utter disbelief. It was totally unprecedented. These are unprecedented times that we are facing right now in the NFL. I mean, I know with a lot of scary injuries that have happened this year, especially the head injuries too. A lot of concerns about that. With Tua and his head injury there, looking like that, could be forced to an early retirement, and that very well could be the case still with Tua after going into his third concussion this year. You know, um, we all saw what happened on Monday Night Football. If you did not watch it, I'm sure you've read about it in the news or on Facebook or Twitter, what have you. It's been all over. Um, you know, we get the daily updates on how number three is doing. We realize that it's not easy for anybody to have to go through this. Obviously, the organization, both organizations of Cincinnati and Buffalo, they're dealing with this. They're taking this definitely the hardest, especially obviously his family is too. It's a tough time right now, and to be quite honest with you, if the NFL does decide to scrap this game and move on, I definitely don't think that would be a bad idea whatsoever. So far, I think the NFL has done a really good job with handling the situation. It's not easy to have to come up with these quick, sudden decisions, especially when you know week 17. You see these teams right now making playoffs and what have you. But this is something that you just can't get over something like that and go back and expect to play a game of football. It's just Joe Buck and Troy Aikman said it best. There's no way that these guys were going to come out here and play football again. Um, and then in a press conference today, Zach Taylor, Bengals head coach, uh, said it best too when he was talking to Sean McDermott. One of the conversations they had during that whole travesty, he said, obviously, I can't come in here. I can't coach this game right now. I need to be with DeMar right now. I have to make sure that he's okay. I have to know what's going on. So, um, obviously, it's unfortunate that we have to, we may not see this game continue because of two legendary quarterbacks, two very well coached teams, um, both teams that are predicted to go into the playoffs, deep in the playoffs, and go for a Super Bowl run yet again for the Bengals and for the Bills to make their first Super Bowl appearance in quite some time. But we all as football fans have to come down to really understanding that the game isn't as important as a player is. It really isn't. The player always has to come first. It's this is the Bills' brother. This is a teammate, but more importantly, this is a brother. And they, as you can see in this opening picture here, with all the Bills gathering together and opening up with a word of prayer, you can't go wrong with this. This is something that they're praying for their brother, and they know the situation is serious, and they need to be there for him. So they understood exactly what they had to do, and this is something that no football fan has ever seen before. I've personally have never seen this happen on national television. In high school, save it for another story, just for privacy reasons. But there was a particular player didn't die on the field, but there were some issues there. I don't want to get too much into the detail on that, but it was a former high school rival that my school where I went to school at used to be. You know that was that something that I haven't seen already, but at a time, but something like this is something that you don't see every day, but it is something that does happen far more often than you and I would think. So, with that being said, if you have not done so already, I just got off of Bible study about an hour ago, and you know, we prayed for Damar Hamlin, we prayed for the family, and we prayed for the organizations. And what I mean by organizations, we obviously prayed for Buffalo in this kind of situation for dealing with something that's like so devastating for them. But we also prayed for the Bengals too, as they're also a big part of it too. Definitely not on purpose. It definitely was something that just wasn't. It definitely wasn't done on purpose. It was just something that just happened. It was a freak accident. So prayers, please, if you have not done so already, say your prayers to Damar Hamlin, to the Hamlin family, to everybody. We just hope that he makes this out okay. So far, they see signs of improvement, as far as I know, from sources I read up on this afternoon. Um, but his life is still in question. So we're going to keep praying. Continue to pray. And we hope for good things to come. So that's all I really want to say on that one, because there are a couple games I do want to get into as well. So for my picks this week, I went 12-3 because I didn't count Monday Night Football for obvious reasons. So overall has been 144, 106, and 2 for the entire year. So that's pretty darn good. Can't beat that. And then we'll talk about some top 10 teams after week 17. All right, so we'll talk about the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, offensively, man, I don't know what's up with them offensively. I mean, obviously, I do know what's up with them offensively. They're just not very good offensively right now. This team needs Lamar Jackson back. They need Lamar Jackson back. It's very obvious they need him back. Without him, this team is not really going anywhere. The defense, I am impressed with the defense. I think they are playing better defense than they've played in the beginning of the year. But if you don't put blitz on a quarterback, you're not gonna. This defense can be pretty easy to figure out. But they've been playing better. I think they've been kind of making some adjustments throughout the year. Especially at this later part of the year. But I still think they need a new defensive coordinator, because I just don't think Greg Roman, the defensive coordinator, is the answer for this team long term. So Ravens got a lot of problems for you right now after that loss to the Steelers. So I dropped them to number 10. Number 9 is the New York Giants. They had the most convincing win that I've seen from the Giants in quite some time. I know the Colts are bad. I get that. And they had to go down to Nick Foles as like their final option. Nick Foles got hurt. Sam Ellinger came in, and he did not do anything to help the team get a win. It didn't even come close. But the Giants are technically sound. They're very well coached. Danny Dimes, I've been very critical of Danny Dimes a lot in the past, but I do believe this is definitely one of his best seasons, if not his best season with the Giants, and it shows just by coaching. This Giants team, they're very well coached. They're a good team. I think they're gonna really make a name for themselves, and if all things work out in their favor, they could play the Vikings again. And the Vikings are at number 8. The Vikings, I saw a lot of their flaws the last couple of weeks. I saw their flaws against the Giants. I saw their flaws definitely saw them last week against the Packers and the Cowboys. The teams that are good or better than them, they just not have played well on both sides of the ball. And defensively, I just don't trust this Vikings defense. I don't know what else there is to really say about it, but this defense is just terrible. They're not very good. And this could be a team we're looking at right now that's not playing well. They easily could be one and done. They really could be one and done. And unfortunately so. And, I've been rooting for the Vikings a little bit. I've wanted them to have a good story this year. And, they've played fine in a lot of games this year, but as of lately, they're just not. So they dropped to number 8. Number 7 is the Cowboys. The Cowboys defense, I thought, improved, but not that convincingly, because they played the Titans and they're all banged up on offense. As far as the Cowboys offense goes, yeah, I'm very concerned about that offense. I'm more concerned about Dak Prescott, if anything else. The guy has been a turnover machine for several weeks, more than several weeks. Um, Pretty much ever since he really came back from his injury, he does not look like the same Dak Prescott as he once was before. Before even this injury, he did not look like himself after he came back from like the first ankle injury that he had a couple of seasons ago. Um, so this Cowboys team right now is looking like the Vikings. They're a one and done team. Very likely they're going to play the Bucks, and I think the Bucks can come out and beat the Cowboys because the Cowboys are just not that team right now. They're not a team that I would want to pick in the Super Bowl to go off and win it. Number 6 is the Chargers. The Chargers, man, the Chargers are exactly what I thought they were going to be this year, and they just continue to prove it every single, at least the last 3 weeks they've been proving it. Defense has gotten a lot better. The offense is starting to click on a little bit at the right time. Herbert's having a much better time. Austin Eckler is a beast. The offensive line is still a bit suspect. I'm not too keen on their offensive line. I think it's still a little suspect. I don't think they're as talented as most other teams are, but everything else around them, Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, the receivers of Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, that defense with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, the corners, they've been playing hot. Uh, this is a team you got to watch out for. I would definitely watch out for the Chargers. Number 5 is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, man, everybody wants to pick them for the playoffs, to win the Super Bowl. I get it. But they're not winning with that defense. Their defense is horrible. I don't know what else there really is to say about it. They just gave up another 20-plus point game to the Broncos. How do you do that? The Broncos are the worst offense in the entire league. They're probably right now maybe one of the worst teams, or the second to worst at least. They just can't score offensively. And how they keep scoring 20-plus points on the Chiefs is absolutely beyond me. I just don't get it. So the Chiefs are at number 5. Number 4 is the Eagles. The Eagles are dropping down a little bit. They're dropping down because, well, no Jalen Hurts. Inconsistencies on defense. You name it. I don't blame Gardner Minshew for all of it. I wish people would stop blaming Gardner Minshew for the failures that's going on with the Eagles. But the Eagles are exactly what I thought they were going to be this year. They're just not that good right now, guys. They're not that good. They dropped to number 4. Number 3 and number 2, Bengals, Bills. If either one of these teams ended up winning, probably would have made a little bit more of a difference. But I kind of left them at 3 and 4, 3 and 2, respectively, just because, you know, depending on what happens in that particular game. But both teams, really, really, really good teams. They're both the two teams I would pick to beat the Chiefs any day. I think they're both the most complete teams in my opinion. They got a good coaching staff here. Both have really good defenses that puts Patrick Mahomes on edge. So that also really helps too. If you can put Patrick Mahomes on edge, you can win that game. And if you have the offense out there long enough, which I know both of these offenses are really good, they can definitely take Patrick Mahomes out of the equation and they can play football. Number 1, the San Francisco 49ers. They're down to their third string quarterback. They have the best coaching staff in the league, best defense in the league, although, and I will talk about it, although their defense did slip. They did slip. And we'll talk about that when we get to that game. But regardless, they're still the best team in the NFL right now. Would not shock me if they came out and made it to the Super Bowl. And quite truthfully, on the NFC side of things, the way that it's looking right now, I would pick them to win the NFC Championship in a heartbeat. All right, so we'll talk about some games. Some games I might just mention briefly here and just say, yeah, it's, it is what it is. But we'll talk about this game here, the Titans and Cowboys on Thursday Night Football a week ago. Yeah, Dak is having a lot of problems with turnovers. Like I said, the Cowboys could be one and done easily. They easily could be one and done. The Titans are done at this point too. There's no reason to really talk about the Titans because no Ryan Tannehill. possibly no Derrick Henry for the rest of the season. I think he might as well just tank the rest of the season. The Titans are beat up right now. They're done. They need to go back to the drawing board for next year. They need to pick up some receivers. I think Traylon Burks is solid enough to get you through, but you need a number one receiver. You need someone that's going to be really good for you. You need someone that's going to be really good for, Ryan Tannehill if he decides to come back next year. And if Malik Willis is also, if he's going to be the starting quarterback moving forward or what have you. The team's got to build around what they want to do now. Now they got to find a new identity. Obviously, they still love to use Derrick Henry. And if Derrick Henry was, he's been solid this year, but definitely not the Derrick Henry that we all used to know and love from like 3-4 seasons ago. He's just not there right now. He's getting a little bit older. He's getting, they're definitely overusing him to their advantage. So it's time for the Titans to come up with a new game plan. They need to try to balance out like they did a couple of years ago, the year when they had Corey Davis and Khalif Raymond, Adam Humphries. Like, they got to start doing that now. They got to figure out like a new identity. They can't just be one dimension in this league anymore because teams are catching on to it. Everybody knows what they're going to do. They're going to hand the ball off to Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill is probably going to throw, a short pass here and there. He might try a long pass if the defense is broken. And they need some help, the Titans. So they're definitely going to be dealing with some help this year in the offseason. So that's one thing to look forward to if you're a Titans fan. But the Cowboys, they started out hot. I thought they were going to be, I thought they could have put on a clinic at least for this game, but it was a tighter game than people would have expected. I did not expect it to be as tight of a game as it turned out to be. It was 27-13. So realistically, maybe not that close, but at the same time, you take out like, if you don't count like those turnovers from Dak, I believe he had like 3 turnovers. He fumbled and intercepted the ball twice. This could be a totally different game. But I definitely worry about Dak. I definitely worry about him. I worry about this offensive line. The receivers, I think, are good. I think CeeDee Lamb is still a beast. I think the running backs, more so Tony Pollard, can get things rolling here too. I think Zeke just, is looking slower. He's looking sluggish. He hasn't really done that much this year to help out the running game. So, knowing the Cowboys, they're complacent. They're not going to trade him away because of obvious reasons, the money reasons. He's, worth way too much. But Tony Pollard needs to be starting. And Tony Pollard did not start in this game, actually. And I just forgot about that. Tony Pollard was out with an injury, so he did not start in this game. But he might be expected to play this week. I haven't really heard too much, but I'll let you know on Friday. But, yeah, that's one thing. If the Cowboys got to worry about anything, they got to worry about the turnovers. The turnovers have been way too much on the Cowboys. So they got to fix that up. And if they're expected to beat the Commanders this Sunday, they got to figure out a way of how they're going to do that. Because Dak can't turn that ball away. And if he's going up against that defensive line for Washington, that offensive line for the Cowboys versus that defensive line from the Cowboys, or I'm sorry, offensive line from the Commanders and the defensive line from the Cowboys. Yeah, I'm confused now. Offensive line for the Cowboys, defensive line from the Commanders. Not a good matchup right there. So Dak's got to limit his turnovers in that game. Real quick, Falcons broke that losing streak. Yay. What's his name? Desmond Ridder finally got his first win with the Falcons, broke that streak. They won 20-19 on a dramatic field goal from Young Waku. That's all I'm going to say on that. All right, the Patriots are still alive. The defense gets the job done. The defense of the Patriots is still, I would not want to play this Patriots defense if I was any team. Regardless if I'm Buffalo or if I'm Cincinnati or even if I'm Kansas City, I would be scared to play this defense. They were out with a lot of players. They had at least 4 players out, and all their corners were out. Jack Jones was out. He's placed on IR. There was another one that was out too. There was like a whole bunch of them that were out in this particular game. which was going to be a little bit concerning because of how fast we all know that Miami's weapons are. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, for example. But they had a lot of players out on that defensive side, especially at corner. So that was definitely a bit concerning. However, you're playing Teddy Bridgewater. Now, if you did not play Teddy Bridgewater in this game, you probably would. It probably would have been totally a different story. Tua probably would have came back and won this game. Teddy Bridgewater does not fit into the system well with the Dolphins. He struggled in this game immensely. He was making far too many mistakes. He was overthrowing the ball, and when he would throw a deep pass, the deep pass was definitely not very pretty whatsoever. Especially that one that I saw on NFL Red Zone was just absolutely, if anybody was out there for his team, would have been a beautiful ball. But um, unfortunately, in the Patriots case, they probably would have loved to turn that ball over, and they easily could have. That was very, very concerning. But Teddy Bridgewater does not fit into the system very well, I don't think. And he's out. He's out with an injury. So now they're down to the third string quarterback of Skylar Thompson. And to be quite honest with you, the Jets aren't looking very good either offensively, but there's a good possible chance that the Jets could beat the Dolphins on their third string quarterback. We've seen them play without Tua before. We've seen them play with Tua. It has not been pretty either way. The last few weeks with Tua has not been very pretty, and we're starting to learn now at this point that it's not looking pretty now without Tua. And now they're figuring out like this team very quickly. So it didn't take them very long to figure it out. Offensively, I thought they started out slow, but I thought Mac Jones played a fairly contested game. I thought he was accurate. He made big plays when he really needed to. They didn't really had to ask him to do a whole lot, but when he had to pull through for his team, he was successful in it. He stepped up to the plate and got the job done. Now, Mac Jones is nowhere near the Mac Jones that we saw a year ago from this team. That is definitely very true. But if you give him a good offensive coordinator, Matt Patricia is not whatsoever. You get this guy a good offensive coordinator. You get this guy at least a new number one receiver for this team that you can heavily rely on. You can probably draft one in the draft this year, but knowing Bill Belichick, he's not very. He usually does not really draft very well. In most cases, if they could do that, this team could be pretty dangerous, and they could be a dark horse for like a Super Bowl if they just fix up on those things on offense, and if they could help gain confidence in Mac Jones, because I think Mac Jones is a fine quarterback in his own right. I think he's very good with the Patriots. I think he fits into their scheme very well. Just this problem, at least just this year, he struggled because of a new offensive playbook. When Josh McDaniels left to go to Vegas and put Matt Patricia in, who is not an offensive guy, and he's a defensive guy, and you got to learn a whole new playbook. It's not easy. It's not easy whatsoever. So that's something that Mac Jones has not really been able to develop, but he has gotten better this week. I think coaches have done a better job adjusting to the game plan. I think we saw that last week when they played, or 2 weeks ago when they played Cincinnati. I thought they adjusted to that and probably could have been in a position to beat them. And they adjusted very well with Mac Jones. They worked around what he was good in, and they wanted him to succeed in it. And this particular game here, I think, was definitely one of his better games this year from the Patriots. And I think this team, be quite honest with you, they're not winning a Super Bowl. But if I were a team and I had to play this defense, I really wouldn't want to, because their pass rush, when they get pressure on you, they get pressure on you big time. So that's one thing I got to say about the Patriots, and that's why I'm saying that they have a good chance to squeak into that playoff spot there, getting that last wild card spot. There'll be a competition between them and Pittsburgh, I believe, and mainly because New England has to play Buffalo, and if Buffalo plays all their starters for maybe seeding reasons, whatever, the Bills will beat them. I don't see them beating the Bills, but that's going to really determine on how the status is of DeMar Hamlin. And then they got to hope that the Steelers uh, lose to the Browns. And I believe if the Steelers do lose and the Patriots do lose, I think they still get in because they have that head-to-head victory over the Steelers. I'd have to look more into the math on that, but they could get in with an 8-9 record, or they could get in with a 9-8 record. Either way, so don't fool around with this defense of the Patriots. The Saints, they didn't really have much to play for in this game, but when they did, they came to play it. Their best game of the year, Andy Dalton's better game of the year, in my opinion, who's been up and down a lot. It's been like a roller coaster for him this year, and for the whole Saints team. But they came in. They came in, and they finally beat the Eagles. The Eagles have owned them for the last 2 seasons with Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts not being in this game made the whole difference for the Saints. Defensively, I thought they played their best defensive game of the year. I thought their offense was clicking a little bit too. Andy Dalton was making some plays here and there too. But they were able to catch the Eagles off by surprise. They were able to catch them off guard and beat them the way that they did. But I'm telling you, this Eagles team, I tried to tell you guys, there are inconsistencies about this Eagles team on both sides of the ball. But I'm mostly talking about defense. And you need a good defense to be able to win games. I don't care what anybody says about it. I get it. It's an offensive league. Nowadays, it's a passing league. Everybody likes to pass the ball and throw deep down the field. They like to get all these receivers. I get it. But I'm telling you, you don't win games if you don't have a defense. You can have like a Patrick Mahomes and, win in an absolute shootout. But you need a defense to be able to solidify everything. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is his own quarterback issue. I'm talking about like other teams, like the Patriots, teams that don't really have like that offense really very well. The Eagles, who are very good, they don't have a defense that's consistent enough. The Vikings definitely have a defense that's pretty bad. To name a few. That's a couple to name a few there. But you need defense, and you need to be consistent. And this Eagles defense is not there. It's just not there. I'm sorry, Eagles fans, but if you watch the games or you keep up with the stat lines as much as I try to keep up with them, you would understand a little bit more where these inconsistencies come from. They're just not that good. They're not that good, guys. When Jalen Hurts comes back, it might make a difference. They could give the 49ers a run for their money. But if he's not coming back anytime soon, that could mean a whole wild world difference. Again, I am not blaming Minshew at all. I don't think Minshew is the problem whatsoever. But the defense does not play very well when they have to go against, teams that are subpar to very low average. Like they barely beat the Texans. That's a team that's pretty bad. They couldn't beat the Commanders the second time. They had a hard time. They couldn't even beat the Cowboys. They couldn't slow down a struggling Dak Prescott and the offense for the Cowboys. This defense is inconsistent. They can't. There's some things they can do really well and they excel well in, and then in terms of that is being able to get a good pass rush in. They have good corners, but the run defense is inconsistent. If you want to run the ball on them, you're more than able to do so. And you do whatever else you want to. And if they're not consistent, they're not clicking, they don't play well. So the Eagles have to have some concerns about that. One, they got to hope that Jalen Hurts comes back, but they also got to get better on defense if they want to beat, good teams. And, obviously the NFC is not very good, so they can probably beat the Vikings again. They can probably, beat the Bucks. Quite truthfully, they probably could beat the Bucks, but it's Tom Brady. But I think if anybody in that division, like division winners, the Vikings are like their best shot. Really the only team they probably could beat because of how bad their defense is. So I'm just saying, I'm trying to tell you guys, they're just not that good. And I'm not saying that to be biased. They're really not good. All right, the Giants and the Colts, I talked about it a little bit. I'm happy that the Giants finally clinched their first playoff appearance since 2016. They could have some success. I think this team, the way that they're looking, they did look a little sluggish in the beginning of the game. Looked like it was going to be like a defensive game, a tight game like normal with the Giants. But they came out. They came out strong and they played really well. They beat the Colts 38-10. I thought that was one of Danny Dimes' best appearances of the game, of the year at least. This Giants team, I'm not being biased or anything, but they're looking good now. I think this is a team that before, like a month ago, they were, had some questions here. They had some injury problems here on both sides of the ball. Danny Dimes not having really a reliable receiver that he can, depend on. But he has found a couple that he has been able to rely on well, and that's like Isaiah Hodges is one of them, and Richie James, the special teams guy. Like, he's making it work. And he's making it work by, containing himself. He's not getting so pressured, so bad under pressure like he used to. He's getting rid of the ball right away. He's not fumbling all over the place like he used to. Danny Dimes is playing better. I'm very impressed with the way Danny Dimes has played this year. I think coaching definitely makes a big difference in his ability to play quarterback, and they're a good team. They put the best team together as possible with the very limited talent that they have, and they could go as deep as they can in the playoffs. I think if they play the Vikings, I think they could beat the Vikings, and probably could get into the NFC divisional round, maybe even an NFC championship. Maybe. I mean, last time they had this kind of record, they won a Super Bowl, so just saying there. But no, it was good for the Giants, though. I'm happy that they got their playoff appearance. I'm glad that Danny Dimes had a big statement win here. I just hope that, some more teams start to give him the respect that he does deserve for this year, and we'll see what happens for next year. And if the coaching staff is still there, obviously, I think Danny Dimes would really fit into the system. I think Jones is good. So we'll see how that goes. All right, this game here with the season on the line, with the division on the line. Tom Brady and Mike Evans, the relationship is back. Nearing Mike Evans having over 200 reception yards and 3 touchdowns. Holy guacamole, what a performance by Mike Evans. Obviously, hands down, the best performance of the season for Mike Evans and Tom Brady. This is definitely their best game of the year. This is the Tom Brady and Mike Evans connection that we all thought that they would have had this year because of Mike Evans having that touchdown ratio as being like a favorite for Tom Brady. That's like his big target. Mike Evans has been quiet this year. I'm not going to lie. He's been quiet this year. He's not had a lot of touchdowns this year like he has in years past with different quarterbacks that he's had, especially Tom Brady. But this was definitely the best game for them this year. The Panthers had them on the ropes. I thought the Panthers were going to kind of sneak away a little bit with the way that they did, but Sam Darnold, unfortunately in his case, and I feel bad, reverted back to being Sam Darnold. Threw a pick, I believe he also had a fumble in this game too, but the Bucs defense came to life. The offense obviously came to life. Tom Brady came to life. This Bucs team now is totally different than what they were last week or the week before. You can't count out this team. You really can't, and rightfully so. They won that division, so that's rightfully so. That's the right thing to do. So they won that division. They're going to the playoffs. They already clinched it. The Panthers, unfortunately, had a nice story to them this year. They started out really, really bad under Matt Rule, Baker Mayfield. They traded for Baker Mayfield. Didn't work out to their advantage. PJ Walker starting over Baker Mayfield, and started a little bit of a spark for them. PJ Walker goes down with a sprained ankle. Sam Darnold comes in. He has some hot weeks. The first three games that he started in, I think 3 or 4 games he started in. Really hot, but this game just got to the best of him and just didn't work out the way that the team was hoping and that he was hoping for. So a lot of things happened. They went through a lot of adversity this year. It's a shame that the Panther season had to be eliminated the way that it did against the Bucks, but the rightful winner of this game, deserves the division. And who knows, the Panthers could come back next year, depending on who they get as a coach, whether if they hire Steve Wilkes, or if they get any other coaches that are available. Because I know there's quite a few names that are being thrown out there for like teams like the Broncos and what have you. That's looking for coaches. There's another one. The Colts are looking for one too. Why not the Panthers? They got a good team. They got a decent team around them. The right coaching staff that gets in there, the good offensive playbook they get, they could be a good team. So we'll see. Better luck next year for the Panthers, but good job for the Bucks in keeping their season alive and well. All right, like I said, the Chiefs barely survive against the Broncos. The Broncos, Russell Wilson, have struggled immersively all year, and for whatever reason, they play well against the Chiefs. They played well against the Chiefs for the last 2 weeks. I don't have much to really say about this game because the Chiefs at this point could possibly, depending on how the Bills and Bengals game works out, they could possibly get the number 1 seed here in the AFC. The Broncos are just bad. If they would have gotten another big play or two, they probably could have snuck away. Maybe would have helped out a little bit with the Bills, the Bengals if the Chiefs did lose. But at the same time, no. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he came back and was able to win this game, and was able to do what Patrick Mahomes does. Russell Wilson, his 2 of his best games this year came down against the Chiefs. He's played really well for whatever reason for against the Chiefs this year, but just not any other team that he's played. The Broncos, they got a lot of things they got to clean up for next year. We'll talk more about that when I do like my off-season stuff. But yeah, they are definitely not the team that everybody was expecting them to be. Everybody was expecting them to be Super Bowl champions or Super Bowl hopefuls at least. They just have not been that this year whatsoever. So we'll see what happens. They're looking for a coach now, Nathaniel Hackett. I don't know why they just didn't wait until the end of the season, but he got fired, and they're going to be on the search for a new coach for them heading into next year. I think Sean Payton should be in the mix right there. Jim Harbaugh, I've heard some rumors that Jim Harbaugh could be leaving Michigan and could be going to the Broncos too. They might be interested in interviewing him, calling him up. This team could use coaches like that. Totally. I think if you put either one of those coaches in, I wouldn't be upset either way. I think they would have a pretty smart team. I think they would clean up this team, clean up the franchise and the organization. Then they might be able to. Then maybe next year we might look into a Super Bowl appearance for them. But this year was just not it for them. Just did not work out. So that's what I gotta say. The Lions, they steamroll the Bears. The Bears are just done for the year. They're just not in it. Obviously, for obvious reasons, they're just not very good. But can they beat the Packers next week? Well, let's take a look. Oh, sorry. So, can they beat the Packers next week? I believe they have a good shot. They beat the Packers last time. Mostly it was because of defense. Mostly because the Packers offense and Aaron Rodgers just wasn't having the connection that he's having now with Watson in this passing game, and the defense has not been was not playing as well as they are playing right now. So I think the Lions, I would like to see them get into the playoffs. I think that would be kind of like a nice story for the Lions. Last year they were 3-13 and 1 last year. One of the worst teams in the league. To becoming one of the most underrated dark horses of the NFL this year. I would like to see them. I think it's nice to see like an underdog kind of go in a little bit. I think Jared Goff has, put the team on his back a little bit. He's been stepping up to the plate with the talent that he's had and some of the injuries that they've been dealing with. Recently, having a good offensive line. Their offensive line's good. Defense has improved. They're getting better. I think I think the Lions can showcase a lot, and I would like for them to go into the playoffs because I think they can pull off some big wins in the playoffs, like the Vikings. I think they're a team that could beat the Vikings. Maybe they could be a team that could upset the Eagles. I thought they played the Eagles the first time very well. Maybe if they get a chance to play the Eagles, maybe they could probably upset them or something. They could probably beat the Giants. They already beat. That could be a highly contested game. They could put, they can give a run for the money for the Giants, and they probably could beat the Cowboys. I think with the way that Dak is playing right now, his all of his injuries that he's having right now, they could beat the Cowboys. So, it's definitely would not be unheard of if the Lions did beat these teams, because they've beaten good teams before. They just don't have a good franchise. I think if they get this win, they get into the playoffs. We might be able to see a little bit of things, but I think they have a good shot at it. I think they have some good weapons, but at the same time, the Packers are also very tough right now too on both sides of the ball. I think Aaron Rodgers, that connection with Rodgers and Christian Watson is just way too much. All right, so the Commanders, they switched back to Carson Wentz, and let me just tell you, it was a disaster. I didn't watch a whole lot of this game, but every time that I saw the Commanders have the ball, I'm telling you, every time I saw the Commanders have the possession of the ball, Carson Wentz always threw a pick or turned the ball over. Carson Wentz for this team, Ron Rivera. I thought Ron Rivera was helping turning this team around, but he did not help this team by starting Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has not played for a good chunk, like not even like the second half of the season. He has not played. And the games that he has played in, he's had two good games. Maybe maybe two is being very generous, but he's had at least one good game, and that was the very first game of the season. Everything else, he has not done crap. He has not done anything. And the fact that Ron Rivera did not know that this was putting them in a position where they could lose the playoffs, a playoff spot, and they were clinging on to it. And I thought, this Commanders team was looking good. They probably could have made it in. He didn't even realize that he didn't even know that they could have gotten eliminated if against the Packers and Vikings game. He did not realize that whatsoever. So I blame this one really. I want to be. I don't want to be critical of Ron Rivera because I think he is a good coach. He's good for this franchise. He's has had his moments, but there have been times this year where he has coached some good games. But I also believe that Dan Snyder, I think, is also responsible for the disaster that happened this weekend, and I think the GM is too. I think when you have a quarterback, you get a quarterback in a trade from the Colts, and you trade away your draft picks, and you're paying the quarterback all this money, and you want to be complacent, and you want to show everybody like, hey, we got all this money for him, we're going to use him. I'm pretty sure that's really what it was, is because they did pay him a lot of money just to get him this year, and it did not work out whatsoever. This game was just not very good for him. He did not have a good game whatsoever against the Browns. And the Browns are good. I will say that right now with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson did not have a very pretty game in the beginning, but he got the team rolling a little bit. The Browns could be good next year. I think they have a good chance they could be good next year. If he kind of continues to, behave himself, he kind of puts himself in good positions where, he's practicing with the team, he's practicing the playbooks and growing a relationship with the team. They could be a pretty good team next year. I wouldn't doubt that. But the Commanders have to figure out what they're going to do as far as quarterback goes, because Carson Wentz is not the answer now at this point. He's had 3 chances. He's had multiple chances with the Eagles, and has had one really good season, and that was the year when they went to the Super Bowl. Ever since that injury happened, he's been very, very up and down, inconsistent. Carson Wentz is not the answer. They should have played Taylor Heineke, 100%. I feel like the team really played better for Heineke. They played mostly for heart, and I think it's because Heineke plays with heart. I just don't think Carson Wentz in this point has any heart for the game of football anymore, just by the way he played in this game and the way that he addresses the situations in his press conferences. I think he's done with football as a whole. So we'll see what the Commanders do moving forward, but if Ron Rivera leaves, or gets fired. Could be an opening spot here too for a coach in Washington. I don't think Washington is a bad team whatsoever. I think they're a very decent team. I think they're very fairly contested and they can fight with any team. But with the way that Carson Wentz played, it was very ugly. It reminded me so much of how the way when he played with the Colts last year of how they played Jacksonville. Very ugly. So again, Jags continue the winning ways. They're going to win the division. I'm calling it. Don't need to say any more about that. All right, so I want to talk about this one. The Jared Stidham, starting for over Derek Carr, and I promise, guys, when the off season comes, maybe during this time frame or whatever, I will come up with a video where I will talk about Derek Carr and where he's probably going to go next year. But I'm very sad that they benched Derek Carr, especially considering what they did have left in them. With playoff implications, I thought they could have tried to make it in at least. But I understand they wanted to see how Jared Stidham. They didn't think they were going to play the Niners or the Chiefs as well as they did. So let's talk about that. So how did Jared Stidham do? I thought he played a very good game. I'm not going to lie. I don't personally think he played any different than what Derek Carr probably would have had to play. But Jared Stidham, being a New England guy, he's played under Tom Brady. He knows the Josh McDaniels offensive playbook. He looked like a superstar. He looked like almost like a Joe Montana of the Raiders. It's crazy. I thought he had a good game. Davante Adams, unbelievable game for him. Look at that huge catch that he had there in the end zone for the touchdown. He had a really good game. I thought McDaniels has coached really well. And I know a lot of people have been down on Josh McDaniels this year, but I personally have not been. I think Josh McDaniels, all he really needs for this team to be successful is a defense. If they can get defensive players this offseason, this team could be very dangerous. Very dangerous. Just go back, watch all the games that the Raiders have played this year, watch the highlights, watch everything that you got to do, analyze the film a little bit. You'll see how good this team really is. Because if they had a defense, this team would be so much better. So much better. And they wouldn't have lost all these crazy games this year. But the 49ers, sadly enough, did end up surviving the scare in overtime. Robbie Gould did miss a kick in regulation. It was a 41-yard field goal. It was a very makeable one. But Robbie Gould, obviously, he misses kicks here and there. So I really wasn't that shocked that he missed it with a makeable field goal because he's missed field goals before like that. But in this kind of a case, though, too, I have no idea what happened to the Niners defense. I have no idea. This is the best coaching staff in the league, for sure, as far as the Niners go. And Josh McDaniels almost found a way to beat them. He put them on the ropes. He did everything that he wanted to do. Almost every single thing. They passed the ball, they were successful in it. They wanted to run the ball, they were successful in it. Their special teams, if they wanted to, they were successful in it. The defense for the 49ers, I just think this was a bad matchup. And I think the difference is having Davante Adams. If you did not have Adams as your wide receiver, you did not have Josh Jacobs as your running back here, the Raiders would be totally different. Totally different if they didn't have those two factors. Crazy game, though. I'm sad that the Raiders season had to end the way that it did last week against the Steelers, with a last-second loss there. And it was also kind of sad to see them lose to the Niners the way that they did, too. But the Niners are good, though. Give them credit where credit is due. And I think next year the Raiders are going to figure out their problems on defense. I think they need to figure that out. And McDaniels will continue his winning ways with the Raiders. I think he's going to be fine with this team. I think they're good. But I just think at this point now, you're trying everything you can. And I get it. I mean, I love Derek Carr. I think he's one of the best, one of the best people in this league. I love and admire everything that he's done for the Raiders and what he was able to do. But I think this is the time now where Derek Carr is going to start looking for a new team to play with. And, like I said, when I get to that video in terms of Derek Carr and where he might be playing next year, I think this was it was time. I think it was time for Derek Carr to just kind of call it quits for the day Obviously, they benched him, which we already know that, but kind of just requested a trade. I think it's just time for him to kind of smooth their way away, let McDaniels do what he wants to do. He might turn this team to be good. I truly believe next year, if they get everything right, they get the draft right, the defense right, this team will be pretty darn good. They'll be tough to beat. All right, real quick, the Seahawks defense comes to play. They eliminate the Jets out of playoff contention. Yep, that was not that shocking to me. But what was shocking to me more is how good both defenses played in this game. And I honestly just would have liked to have imagined what the game would have been like if the Seahawks did not have the kind of offense that they have, playing against a tough Jets defense. So Jets are done for the year. Seahawks are still fighting for a playoff spot. This loss definitely hurts the Jets, and we'll see what happens with the Jets next year in terms of how that goes. We'll see if they can make the playoffs next year. I think they have a good shot of doing so. But the Seahawks, one more win, and they're in. If they could beat the Rams, they're in. If they lose, they could be out. Very well could be out. But yeah, I was surprised of how good the Seahawks defense played. And I think the reasons why they did play as well as they did is because of how injured this offense for the Jets is. If Breece Hall played in this game, probably would have been a whole different story. He probably would have ran all over them. But there's no Breece Hall. That's not happening. Mike White coming back from an injury had some issues in this game here too. I don't think Mike White is that bad. I think he's personally better than Zach Wilson. But he's not a long-term answer guy. And this is one of the teams that has the talent in them, but just needs a quarterback. I think, personally, Derek Carr should go to the Jets next year. I'll talk more about that when we get to that chance. But this could be a good fit for Derek Carr to redeem himself, playing with a talented team like the Jets with young talent. And with him being an older quarterback in this league, being almost 30, probably is already 30, not sure. But could take this team, to playoff contention next year. I think this is a team that needs to look into getting him for next year. The Seahawks, Geno Smith, I think they roll around with Geno Smith one more year. I thought Geno Smith played another nice game here this year. He's played a fine season all year. I think they keep him for another year. This team could be better next year. If the injuries did not happen the way that they did, they could be better. So that's one way to look at it for that. But good job for the Seahawks defense to play, and good job for them to eliminating the Jets out of playoff contention. And they could play next. They play next year. Real quick, the Vikings, not Vikings, the Packers. They obliterated the Vikings. I've talked about it already 100 times. They obliterated them. Just didn't think they were going to beat them up the way that they did. But at the same time, I'm not surprised that they did. The Vikings defense just stinks all around. And the Vikings could be in danger of losing a playoff game early in the first round. But the Packers, man, watch out for them. I talked about them when I was talking about the Lions. So they're hot at the right time. So watch out for them. Like the Chargers, watch out for the Chargers. They came in and they beat up on the Rams. The Rams are, they're kind of a team that's getting back on the right track a little bit too little too late, obviously. But the Chargers, watch out for them. Their defense is hot. I am telling you. They are hot, this team. And this is a team that could find a way to beat you in any given way. If they want to beat you on defense, they can probably beat you on defense. If they want to beat you on offense, in terms of the run game with Austin Eckler, they can definitely do that. The passing game with Justin Herbert, they probably could do that too. Any which way that the Chargers want to beat you, they probably could do so. And then lastly, the Steelers-Ravens games, these games are always defensive battles. These games are always very, very hard to pick because of, regardless of the records between both teams. And the Steelers have not been all that special this year, although last several weeks they've been impressing me more and more. I think a lot of it has to do with TJ Watt being back for the defense for the Steelers. But this game was ugly for sure. It wasn't a pretty performance. It wasn't a pretty performance by Kenny Pickett, who actually got to play a full game. against the Ravens this time around. The defense played excellent. Obviously, they got to Tyler Huntley way so often. The run game, they just couldn't get any kind of run game going here. When they tried to throw a deep ball in, they weren't successful in that either. Uh, one touchdown was to Isaiah Likely right before the end of the half there. Some people probably call it a little bit of controversy in terms of like how that drive kind of played out for them to score that touchdown there. Can't quite remember I think it was like unnecessary roughness or it was like a delay game for like the Steelers or something. I can't remember what the call was, um, but it cost him that touchdown there. But it did not cost him the game. These games are always really good. They're always defensive battles. The Steelers are still alive, but they have a tall task, and they got to beat the Browns. The Browns are also coming around. They lost to the Browns already. They're coming around at the right time. This is the week where the Steelers have to take advantage. They have to be able to beat the Browns in order to get that playoff spot for next week, and they got to hope that the Patriots lose. That's what it really comes down to. But to talk about the game a little bit, there's not a whole lot to really talk about. But both defenses, I thought they played excellent. I think the Ravens blitz always works against the Steelers, and I thought it worked really well with getting pressure for Kenny Pickett. But I really think Kenny Pickett is the future for this team. He's looking like it, at least. I think he's still got a long ways to go. There's some things he can definitely work on. But as of late, I've respected a lot of what he's done. I've respected what Mike Tomlin has done for this team over the years. I thought they were going to definitely have a losing season for sure. I thought that would have been the case for them this year, but they're battling back, and they could potentially make it to the wild card. Very likely so. So with all that being said, guys, I just thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everything that you guys do for me. I appreciate you guys listening to me live. I know, in these kind of cases, it's always unfortunate for me to have to really delay. But sometimes we just got to do what's best for the sport. We got to do what's best as far as like podcast people go. We got to be good human beings. We got to be able to do with what's right and just be respectful to the sport as well. So, like I said, everybody, keep your prayers in for Damar Hamlin. Let's just keep praying and hoping that he has a good turnout here. But with all that being said, guys, before I close out, please be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell, drop a like on this video if you liked everything that I've talked about tonight, and leave a comment down below if you liked everything I talked about. If you want to see more NFL content from me or maybe other sports, what have you, let me know. Leave a comment down below. And with all that being said, guys, thank you. Thank you so much for all your continued support. I will see you all on Friday night, where I will be doing my Week 18 picks for the regular season, the regular season finale. So, with all that being said, guys, this is JP Football Fanatics saying peace out. We'll see you all next time. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed night.